All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're digging into something huge, a plan from the UK's Conservative Party to completely get rid of stamp duty. You know, that massive tax that can feel like the final hurdle to buying a home.
So what if the biggest tax you pay when buying a home just disappeared? I mean, seriously, think about that. If you've ever dreamt of owning your own place or felt kind of trapped where you are now, that's a pretty huge what if, right? But what would it actually look like? Okay, before we dive into the whole getting rid of it part, let's make sure we're all on the same page. What exactly is stamp duty? Well, it's basically that big chunk of cash you have to hand over to the government when you buy a property. And yeah, for a lot of people, it's a serious roadblock. All right, so let's get into the proposal itself. It's a big announcement, so we're going to unpack exactly what's on the table.
Well, you can't really get more direct than this. Kimi Badenoch from the Conservative Party laid it out plain and simple. A future Conservative government would just get rid of stamp duty. That is a massive promise, and you can bet it's designed to make everyone sit up and take notice.
But, and this is a big but, the devil is always in the details, right? This isn't just a free-for-all. The plan is for it to only apply to your main home, the place you actually live. So, if you're a buy-to-let landlord, a company buying property, or a non-UK resident, you'd still be paying up. And it's also worth remembering this wouldn't touch Scotland or Wales since they have their own tax systems. Okay, so why make this change? What's the thinking behind ditching a tax that, let's be honest, brings in a lot of money for the government every year? Let's look at the case for abolition.
So the main argument here is that stamp duty isn't just a tax people don't like, it's actually a bad tax that hurts the economy. The thinking is that it basically gums up the whole housing market. It's a tax on the simple act of moving, which, when you think about it, can stop people from taking a new job in a different city or moving to a bigger house when their family grows.
And look, this isn't just a line they came up with. They're pointing to some serious analysis from independent experts. The Institute for Fiscal Studies, a pretty well-respected think tank, has been saying for a while now that stamp duty is one of the most economically damaging taxes we have. A pretty strong statement, right?
So, what are they hoping to achieve? Well, the goals are pretty big. The idea is to create this super dynamic housing market where everyone can move around more easily. This, in theory, helps people climb the social ladder, and of course, the big one, helps more people actually own their own home. But of course, with any massive tax change like this, you have to ask, who really wins? This is where we get into the other side of the argument, the question of fairness. And here is the big pushback. Another think tank, the Social Market Foundation, looked at this and came to a very different conclusion. They're saying that while the plan sounds like it helps everyone, the reality is that the biggest winners would be people who already own homes, especially in pricey areas like London.
And this really is the core of the whole debate, isn't it? On one hand, you have the goal, help more people buy a home, boost mobility. But on the other hand, you have this analysis that says, hang on a second, this plan mostly just helps existing homeowners in the wealthiest parts of the country. It's a pretty stark contrast.
Okay, so putting the fairness debate aside for a second, there's another pretty big question. How do you pay for it? We're talking about a lot of money. How much? Around £12 billion.
Yeah, £12 billion every single year. That's the hole this would leave in the government's budget. So the Social Market Foundation is basically saying that for this plan to be taken seriously, you'd need to find that $12 billion in savings, year in, year out, and that is a massive, massive challenge.
So, as you can imagine, an idea this big and this expensive was bound to create some waves. Let's take a quick look at how the other political parties have responded.
Labor's reaction? It was pretty immediate and, honestly, pretty sharp. They didn't really get into the weeds of the policy itself. Instead, their chair, Anna Turley, used it as a chance to talk about the Conservatives' overall track record, calling it a disastrous blueprint. The Liberal Democrats took a slightly different angle. Their leader, Ed Davey, basically framed this as a sign that the Conservatives are moving to the hard right. So they put out an open invitation to any more moderate One Nation conservatives who might feel left behind to, come join their party instead. And then you have the Green Party. Their response was all about priorities. Their leader, Zach Polanski, essentially said this whole plan is totally out of touch with what's really happening on the ground, with public services crumbling. They're arguing that £12 billion could be a whole lot better spent elsewhere.
So, after all that, what's the bottom line? Well, you've got this really big, simple, eye-catching promise on one side, a plan to cut a major tax.
sold as a way to fire up the economy. But on the other side, you've got some very serious questions about fairness, funding, and frankly, what our national priorities should be.
And really, that's the question that sits at the heart of all this. Is this a bold plan to unlock the housing market for everyone? Or is it just a massive gift for a select few? That's the debate, and it's one that's definitely not going away anytime soon.